Goal setting is overrated. And here's what you want to do instead. Well, goal setting isn't overrated, but it's a soundbite to begin the video with. I apologize for that. But here's why I believe in some respects goal setting is overrated. I've learned that setting a goal, going for any sort of goal, is very, very difficult to obtain if we don't do something else first. And if we don't do this thing first, what we may find is there may be friction in the pursuit of our goal. It may be harder to achieve our goal. And if we do this one thing, the likelihood of achieving the goal just becomes so much easier. And this concept I want to talk about is the point of what we call identity shifting. Over the past 9 months, I've been working with a coach who has specifically been helping me around my identity. You see, I was a kid that grew up on a council estate in Birmingham, left school with no grades, and I started to create stories about what that meant, like in terms of what I could achieve, how much money I could make, what I was worth. And for probably most of my adult life, I have had an identity, a persona that I have built for myself that has fundamentally been flawed. You see, here's the problem with identity. Identity is like it's like a coat, or it's like a badge, or it's like a declaration to support one football team, or support one political party or another. The problem is, once we make a decision that this is who I am, and we remove any flexibility to change, then our old identity becomes almost like a self-fulfilling prophecy. And therefore we live as if that is the only way. And the problem with that is that when we wear that so much, when we live into that identity so much, if anybody does anything to challenge that, to get us to think differently, what often invariably happens is we are triggered. And a trigger to the ego is an opportunity to defend its position. But in actual fact, the beautiful thing about a trigger is it is an indication to learn something. And so if we are open, if we remain receptive, if we remain flexible in our way of looking at the world, then a trigger or an opinion that is the opposite of ours, is an opportunity for us to be curious, for us to learn something, for us to grow, and maybe perhaps have our identity challenged and changed so that we could perhaps step into a new identity. You see, well, let me illustrate this for you. I watched a movie recently called The Hitman. If you haven't seen it, it's on Netflix. It's pretty good. It's really funny. And this guy is playing the role of a hitman. He's not actually a real hitman. He's pretending to be a hitman, and he's going to bars and restaurants to meet people who are looking to hire a hitman to kill somebody close to them and pay him money to do so. And as soon as he has a taped confession, the police come in, they arrest this person, and he has, done a good deed because he's kept a person alive. And they're arrested, and anyway, it's a comedy, by the way. It's a comedy. It's really funny. I really enjoyed it. Me and Sati really enjoyed it. And the point being is that this guy starts wearing different outfits, starts wearing different costumes, and he starts getting so into this role that eventually he meets a woman who wants to get her husband killed, and he falls in love with this girl, right? And without spoiling the story, he becomes so comfortable in this persona of a hitman. And by that, what I mean is not actually a killer, but he becomes really comfortable in his own skin and his physiology, because before he was kind of meek and shy, but he would switch on this like hitman swagger, physiology, confidence. He'd just kind of turn it on. And so this girl's attracted to that. And so he's like, wow, I better do this more, otherwise I'm not going to have this woman's attention. And I don't want to tell you any more of the movie, because you should watch it, because it's really funny. But my point being is, if you've ever heard the saying, which I'm sure you have, fake it till you make it, I think the beauty of that saying is that for you to achieve your goals, you have to see yourself as a person who has already achieved that goal. So if you have a big goal, like, so for example, I'm working on a goal right now of starting a new venture, of starting a advertising agency, specifically around funny ads, like as in using humor. It's something I've always been passionate about. I've always been into humor. And over the past few years, as I've been going through therapy and doing loads of shadow work, I've noticed that the more healing I do, like the little kid inside of me that used, like I remember being like 3 years old and I was in the first year of school, and I put like a whoopee cushion on the teacher's chair, and like I, as a little kid, was constantly pulling pranks. Like it was like I loved doing stupid stuff that would like make people laugh, or I would regularly be the kid that was like in secondary school, had a bad joke book in his pocket, and I loved telling bad jokes. It was just who I was, right? And then somewhere along the way, I kind of lost that, and I got really serious and got really deep, and I kind of lost that part of me. But I'm starting to really work that back in. And so one of the things I'm realizing as I'm drawn to start this new agency is that it's that part of me that wants to do that. And it's that part of me that's going to need to be prominent for me to be able to have a funny ad agency, because no one's going to want a funny ad agency with a serious person, right? So that's obviously going to have to be a really prominent part. And it's the same with, any other area of life that you want to achieve a goal. You want to think about acting as if you are the kind of person that does that. So one of the things that I learned many years ago from Tony Robbins is he talks about this thing called roles. Now, roles means you want to come up with a title for each particular role that you play in your life and make it fun. So for example, in my marriage, my role is rom-com lover, right? So the reason it's rom-com lover is because I want to be a great lover, both metaphorically speaking and literally. And I love rom-coms, right? So for me, a rom-com is a very idealistic what's the word? Depiction. That's the word. So it's a really idealistic depiction of love, right? And I love it. I love rom-coms. I've watched them for years. It's probably my favorite type of movie, that cliched happily ever after. And so for me, rom-com lover, when I think about that, if I literally think I'm spending time with Sati, if I dial that in and think, okay, we're going out for a date, how would rom-com lover show up? And I think about the ways that he would show up. He would be romantic, he would be present, he would be playful, he would twirl around, he would dance, he would be silly, he would be loving, he would treat you like it was the beginning of the relationship, and so on, right? Do I always get that right? No, I don't. But the point is, the title, the minute I hear it, it's like it accesses something in my brain where it gets me to think and act as if I'm that role. Yeah. And another thing that I've been doing a lot recently, and this is Neville Goddard, who's an old school personal development teacher, talks about manifestation, and he's a big advocate for, rather than writing down your goals, instead what you want to do is write your goal as if you've already achieved it, and then close your eyes, put some nice music on, and visualize it as if it's already happened. And the reason is because the brain doesn't actually know the difference between the closed eye imagination and what is happening in the real world. So when you spend time every day, one of the things I do every morning is I write down 3 or 4 things that I want to achieve. Like, for example, you know, I've got an event. Last week I did an event, a couple of events last week. And before I did those events, I visualized how those events were going to go. I like rehearsed them in my mind. You may have heard like Formula One drivers will rehearse in their mind going through like a race. Like they have simulators for this, obviously. But many times, you know, I've heard stories of people like Lewis Hamilton will kind of sit and will like close their eyes and imagine themselves and move the physiology as if they're going around the track. So that, and they visualize themselves winning the race on the podium, celebrating with the champagne, all this kind of stuff, right? So I've been starting to do that, and I'm finding that there are things happening. There is less resistance. Like last week's events went, you know, better than expected, and I put a lot of that down to me visualizing those things before they'd actually happened and acting as if I were an identity of a person that would go in and just deliver a great, you know, great presentation. So I have a role for that too, right? For my public speaking, I have a specific title. For my parenting, I have a specific title. And so I'm a big believer that goal setting is good, but actually the more powerful thing is to think about elevating your identity, stepping into a new version of you. But you can't do that in the real world. You've got to actually do that closed eyes and actually visualize yourself as a different person in a scene, as if like your life is a movie and you're in the dream scene. You know, so like there's some dream scenes that I have for me, which is like, you know, that I'm just playing with at the moment without kind of going into details. But there's some dream scenes about the kind of house I want to live in and kind of new car I want to drive. And these are just materialistic things. And I think it's absolutely fine to do it on, look, whatever you want. But the point being is not to get attached to the details. The point is to see yourself in various scenes. And actually what's really beautiful is sometimes I visualize myself in a scene. And when I finish the meditation, I realize that's not actually what I want. Like I'm like, oh, didn't actually float my boat. Like visualize myself in a particular car and realize now actually maybe that's not what I want because I didn't get a strong sense for that. So try to emphasize if you haven't already. There's some really good manifestation meditations out there. There is a girl that I recommend called Jessica Heslop. She's got a great, if you put in 10-minute manifestation meditation, Jessica Heslop, she's got a great meditation, which I highly recommend. If I remember, I'll put it in the notes in the bottom. And just try it out. Write your goals down, write a goal down, write it as if you've already made it happen. Come up with a title, like a role for that goal, like as in for the new version of you. And then close your eyes and for sort of 10 minutes, visualize yourself in the scene, acting out as if you've already done it. Like it's powerful. Like I did it the other day, visualizing me as like Conor McGregor in a cage fight because I just wanted to try on his physiology. This is powerful stuff, right? I have no intention of getting into cage fighting, but the physiology of a person like that, like I really admire Conor McGregor's self-belief. There's things about him I maybe don't admire, but there's things about him I do, and I admire his sense of self-belief. And I went, yeah, I want to try that on. So I visualized myself as in his body, doing his walk down to the ring. And it was powerful. Like I finished that meditation and my shoulders were like back after that. It was really, really powerful. So try it on. Try to emphasize. Love to hear how it works for you. Love to hear how it feels. Pick a goal, pick a title, pick a role, write it down, visualize it, do it for 7 days, and just see how it works for you. Anyway, that's it for today. Hope you've enjoyed today's video. As always, I've enjoyed making it. Feel free, love to hear your comments below. Let me know your thoughts on this one, what you've got out of it. And I'll see you next time. Namaste. Peace out.